Welcome. Oh, yeah, it has been a week. So, are you struggling with finding the right staff? And if you're finding staff, do you find them to be underskilled? Jim, how in the heck can you actually train when you're chronically understaffed?
Yeah, Adam, it's a tough one, right? The whole industry's facing it right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Training was an issue before this whole labor shortage came up, I think, in some places.
Yeah. And I know that a lot of other people out there in the industry, those questions probably ring a bell and make you feel a little weird in your belly because the situation got lost or really impacted with COVID. 6 million people left the industry and a lot of folks have come back. And we've discovered that even now there are people who may have jumped to another industry temporarily are now like testing the waters. And and it's very interesting because some hospitality companies seem to be really going for those folks, outlining their core values and speaking to them in a way that matters instead of must maintain a professional appearance at all times. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I read a wild stat the other day that this was quick service specific in the US, but not far off when you think about full service restaurants and the Canadian market and other places. 50% of new employees are lasting less than 90 days. So there's the retention side of that. There's the cost associated with that. But part of what I was reading about was that so many owners and operators are just basically saying, why would I even train them? They're going to be gone in 3 months. So it's like this sort of vicious cycle that's going on. Anyway, there's so many places we can go on this conversation.
Yeah. And this podcast is specifically dedicated to bringing you solutions to the hospitality industry's most persistent challenges. You're the hero of this story. We're just the guides, featuring staff-centric operating solutions for restaurants and the hashtag New Hospitality Culture. And because we were posing this question between us, we excited to bring on our guest, Ricardo Monzon. Ricardo is a hospitality consultant for Zomovida Cultura, and he's also a hot sauce maker, which I can definitely get excited about both those things. He's opened over 10 restaurants nationally. He's really grounded in culture and training as a way of being, and we're thrilled to bring him on. Welcome, Ricardo.
Ricardo, how are you?
How's it going, Jim? How's it going, Adam?
Good to see you. Fantastic. And I said, man, we were excited to have you on because this is something you're dealing with almost every day, right?
Definitely, every single day.
So why don't you give us a thumbnail sketch of your journey up until this point and what your focus in your consulting practice is?
Journey up to this point, pretty much just been going around in hospitality my whole life. It started off with being a kid and going to my dad's friends' places, and that's where the actual hospitality started for me. It was from a place of true love and caring. So that's what I brought with me wherever I went, I hope. And learning along the way, learning the right things and wrong things to do as well. Taking a lot of notes of things that I might have not accomplished how I wanted to at first. Revisit, scratch it off the list, and then start over again. But it's not starting over from new, it's starting over from experience. Remembering that in every step that I...
And I remember from our prep call, you made a differentiation between this idea of feeding people versus hospitality, right?
Yeah. What I was referring to there was where the service aspect of the industry is it's the technical part. It's something that you can teach somebody. It's things that there's steps to. There's certain ways of getting to get a guest to order, getting a guest to have a good time and whatnot. But the hospitality is the warmth that you bring with it and the love that you show with it. I think one of the references that I made was learning these dish that you love to eat. You know, that's that special ingredient. It's that little touch of love. But that person could be next to you, showing you how to make that dish. And what you have to learn first is the recipe. And that recipe is the structure and the steps of how to get there in order to get to this point where you can actually add your touch of love to it. And that's the difference between the service and the hospitality. You can get all the steps down. Once you get all the steps down, and it's not about going over it till you get it right, but it's about going over it till you can't get it wrong. And then you're able to add that little touch of love, which is that flair that's going to bring people to you specifically and not just the restaurant as a whole, which is what makes each restaurant its own place and that much more special because you, whoever it is that's listening or watching or whatever, you're the one thing that everyone else doesn't have. So you have to always remember.
Jim, I know he's probably singing your song because when you're 20 years in the industry, that was one of your focuses, is making sure that people really loved working with you and digging into this aspect of what does hospitality actually mean.
Yeah.
And before we get any further, I just want to make sure that that we do a check-in. So, Ricardo, you good with a check-in?
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Right on. Let me bring up the screen. And so this is a courtesy of our friends at chowco.org, an organization that's based on mental health and wellness for the hospitality industry. And I think this is a really great way to gauge how everybody's feeling without getting into too much detail and story. So it's basically calling out a rare, medium, and you don't necessarily have to go through all those emotions that are attached to that. But so kick us off, bro. Where do you think you're at? What temp are you today? How are you really?
How am I really? I am rare. I like to start every day off as positive as possible. And I'm doing this right now. And then there's other things that I'm going to be doing with some friends and helping out. And that's what I do, man. I'm fortunate.
Ricardo is rare. Fantastic. Jim.
I feel like my sort of body's in two different places, right? Or as a person, I'm in two different places right now. I'm medium rare on one hand because I'm proud to be talking about some of this stuff that we're working on. I look forward to this conversation every week. I'm excited to have Ricardo. Him and I have been back and forth chatting for, I don't know, 6 months or so now. So this is good to actually get him on here. There's another side of me that's medium. I have a daughter who chose to not sleep last night. So there's a little tired, a little that kind of thing, but it's all for good. Yeah.
Yeah. And just to be clear,
I guess I'm medium.
Cool. And just to be clear, you're actually, this is the awkward moment of childhood when you're trying to get her to sleep through the night by herself. So that's a challenge, man. I remember those days very well. And so overall, how would you say? Medium?
I guess I'm medium.
Oh, right on. And I encourage everybody listening to consider how they're doing and also to put in the chat how you're doing. We'd love to know where you're at, both emotionally and physically. And I want to say that for myself, this is going to be a good one. This has changed so much over the last week or 10 days. And I want to say that I'm medium rare to rare because that's where I want to be, right? Because I think that for most of us, we forget that it's a choice. And so I'm going to choose to be a medium rare to rare. Thank you very much. Right on.
Right on.
And back to the conversation, Ricardo. Pardon me, I got a little frog in my throat.
Yeah.
In your consulting practice, who is your typical customer?
Who is my typical customer? Oh, it really varies, truthfully. It goes from anywhere that might have the idea of opening a place and they might need some consultation on kind of commercial real estate and licensing and stuff like that, up to places that have already been in operation for a while and know that there's a need to create culture more so than what they thought they might have had. And that's like changing the wheel on a car that's already on the highway.
And as just a reflection of how powerful that check-in process is, Ryan's chiming in and saying, this is great. I'm with Rick, and I'm rare today. Fantastic.
Love it.
Thanks for your input. Ricardo, what do you see as the biggest challenge with your clients right now? Is there a recurring theme?
Yeah. And I'm pretty clear with all of them, so I'm sure none of it will be too much of a surprise. But a lot of the times there's a lot of ego involved. And it's the ego that you have to get by when it comes to, especially consulting, as much as that word might be tough to get over when you first walk into a building, knowing that you're all on the same page and you're all there for a reason. They called you for a reason, and that reason is to help and to make the place better. So you're all going in the same direction, But sometimes that same direction is something that is difficult to nail down, because no matter what, if you're trying to change something and they want to change something, change is difficult for everyone. It's a change of process, a change of what you do every morning to get ready. And to get over that hump, you have to be extremely direct and very clear in your words and your intentions, and what everyone holds each other accountable for. And sometimes one of the things that I say to owners when I'm speaking to them is that sometimes the things that are going wrong is them. And if they can't handle that, then they're not going to like it when I say it. But I will say it. And I'll say it clearly, because it's for the better of the restaurant. And that restaurant is also home to everybody that works there, to everybody that makes money there. For whatever reason they're there for, they fight for that place every single day. And that's why I go there, to fight for that place and not for somebody's ego. There's a very big difference. So getting over that is usually one of the biggest humps. I've been fortunate that a lot of the times they understand, because of the clarity that you speak with and the questions that you ask, things that you say. Everything it's set up. It's the structure. It's really making those goals consistent and very clear.
Question for you about
Sure.
tying in what you're talking about now with this difference between hospitality and your recipe analogy and that kind of thing. Which part of that recipe versus hospitality thing, which is the more glaring challenge in the industry right now? Is it hospitality and people understanding how to care for people and provide exceptional service that's memorable and those things, or is it the technical side of it? Which part do you find is the biggest challenge right now?
That's a difficult question to answer, because what you're going to start with is really the hospitality side and showing it to them. And if it hasn't been shown to them from the beginning, it's difficult to show it and not seem that you're being fake or just trying to set yourself up for success, when you're really trying to set them up for success. And then very much at the same time, you're going to work on a technical aspect of having your spiels ready, having, how it is that you speak to people, what kind of way you connect with a person. And for myself, challenges, you have to figure out what person you're speaking to. There's 4 major personalities in the human psyche, and you have to figure out which one they are in general, and how they learn, what they might push back against, and how to relate with them, and actually let them know that you are there to be on their side and to help them. Yeah. So it's both.
Yeah, fair enough. And that's the thing. The chicken or the egg, which one came first? I think our industry is in that position right now, but I guess we got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
Just to have this fascinating question for both you, Jim, and Ricardo. So I'm thinking about a particular operator who wrote a great book, but he called his staff members hospitarians. And so I'm curious to know the sense of hospitality versus dining, right? I totally get that. But I'm curious, is a sense of hospitality, is that something that can be trained, or does somebody have to bring that as part of their emotional makeup? Are you hiring for skills, or are you actually hiring for emotional intelligence? Ricardo?
So for me, it's about hiring in the personality and developing the ability. If you're ready to do that, then you're ready. Developing the ability is something that it depends on how you look at it. Some people want to hire for skill, and there's going to be somebody that's been working in the industry for 20, 25 years. They're lifers, but they're set in a certain way. And there's other people that have never worked in the industry, but have it. They have that spark, and that spark is what you want there, because that is that touch of love that you're aiming for them to get through. And that's what sets the site clearly for them, because they're already there for a reason. And you have to make sure that they know that as well. And these are just the steps that we're going to take to make you better at this industry so you can show yourself with what we've taught you.
And just one follow-up question. Can you define what that spark is?
No. No. Genuine.
Adam, that's probably a whole another podcast.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to write.
Number 2, define the hospitality spark.
I'm writing that down. Jim, I'm interested in your perspective.
Okay. We've gone back and forth multiple times, Adam, about our experiences in hospitality, what it was like when we were coming up through the thing. And I've mentioned a mentor of mine multiple times because some things that him and I still have lots of discussion. Someday I'll disclose his name to the discussion. But he used to, and this stuck with me, and I stole this from him. On the first day that people started working in the restaurants that I ran, we used to say to them, if you're not here because you love taking care of people, go work somewhere else.
Right.
Like literally, I'm giving you the opportunity to go find another job now before you ever step foot on the floor. If you don't want to be here because you love taking care of people, because if you don't, you're in the wrong place. You just won't be aligned. And I think the other thing that just stands out that Ricardo was saying about hire for personality. And I think the easy way, and our industry has always been guilty of this, right? I know I did it lots. Colleagues did it. The industry still does it. Experience on a resume, and you think this person will be easy to train, right? And or even worse, I won't have to train them. Here's a set of tongs. Here's a knife because you've got experience. And I think that definitely jumped out of what you were saying, Ricardo. Is you have to hire people who've got it in terms of the people side of the business, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's where I think hiring for skill may somehow trip you up. And I think another important aspect to consider is the emotional makeup of the crew that already exists, right? Someone may be highly skilled, but they come in and they're going to be a problem child right from the start. You get it the way that they're relating to other people and stuff. And we've heard stories of some managers in the present economic climate who won't address employees that are creating problems or have bad behavior because they're scared that if they let this person go, then they won't be able to. And that is probably the quickest way to destroy a team, in my opinion. Ricardo?
We did an annual survey. Sorry, just got to
go, please.
We did an annual survey when I was still in corporate operations of pretty much every employee in the company, like thousands of people every year. And the number one piece of feedback about what they wanted to see the company improve on, we had our own thoughts as leadership, but the thing that came up every single year from the people who worked in the company about what they wanted us to improve on was deal with problem employees faster. And we always thought, oh, I don't want to let that person go. They have friends that work here and it might piss other people off, or who else is going to quit if we let that person go, or if we, all of those types of conversations, right? Same feedback came up every year. That person's making my life more difficult, deal with them, right? Yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, for myself, it's with a problem employee. It's you have to know that right away, and you have to tackle that right away. It's not about the problem, for my opinion. It's not about the problem employee that you need to worry about or who they might take with them, because if they are taking people, they might have the same mindset. What I'm worried about is the culture that you are creating, and that creating that culture of making sure that everybody feels safe and fed in a way that's not physical but emotional, and making them feel their value because they did what they were supposed to. So my concern would be hurting the people that are doing the thing that's right for your place if you don't get rid of the problem person.
Yeah.
That's one of the biggest things, because that's creating culture. And now the people that deserve that reward / staying there and being employed there with you and taking this journey with you, those are the ones that should be elevated regardless of who knows who.
Good call.
Ricardo, we promised listeners that we were going to give them 3 tips, right? Now, it's an incredibly complex problem because some people are probably going to react to this conversation. Yeah, easy for you to say, but I'm not getting any traction in my want ads, or people aren't just showing up. They come for a couple of days and then they leave. A lot of managers and hospitality professionals are getting ghosted on interviews. And I'm curious from your standpoint, like, how do you successfully attract the right talent in a market that seems to be in flux?
So, three major points that I can make. First of all, you being ready, having a clear, unified purpose in your intention, your goals, and your visions, which are two different things. Really showing them the why you want them there and why they should want to be there, and being clear from the beginning, so that way they are clear on what they're walking into, not just showing them a mission statement that, and I'm going to say it is, I won't read a mission statement, because every mission statement is, we're great, we love you, we're going to make $1 million every second, and it's going to be awesome, and have all these parties, and everybody's going to make more money next year. And then you walk into the place, and before you've said hello or anybody said hello to you, you can feel the tension and just gross. Just, this is not what I felt I was going to get, right? It's that feeling, that's that warmth that's already being ignored. Have you not stated yourself clearly in that vision? Second would be showing integrity in those same ideas, asking what their expectations are of the place. So a lot of places forget, no matter how cool you might be, no matter how amazing of a corporate place you might be, the chef, the stars, all this stuff, all the glitz and glam, that's all going to be there. That doesn't matter to anybody that's walking into that place. What matters to them is what's up to you to figure out. So you have something to relate to and have something to talk with them about. And that's hospitality from the beginning, from the get-go. And you're leading by example, right? And then finally is showing them the structure that a lot of people think that they don't want, but more people than not really gravitate towards. And that structure is going to align them for their success in the future of that company, and hopefully for themselves if it's not with that company. The only way they're going to leave me is that it's for a different job completely altogether, because I don't want them to leave me for another serving job, another bartender, another kitchen job, whatever it is. If they have left the restaurant for $1 or $2 more, they didn't leave the restaurant, they left me, because I didn't give them purpose or value or any kind of focus that I could have done as the leader, as a true leader. Yeah, that would be my 3 points for now. And just remind them who you're hiring when you're in your hiring process. It takes a long time and a lot of different interviews for people to come up with certain things. One thing that I say right at the end of every single interview is, I ask them, I'm like, okay, we're ready, we're going to do this paperwork. Now I just want to remind you, you got your Sunday's best on today, and you're looking good, and you feel good, and you're all cleaned up and everything, and you're ready to basically go to a party right after this because you got the job. Great. That's the person that I hired. And that's the person that I expect to show up every single day with that uniform on, nice and crisp and clean and ready to go and ready to rock. Because at the end of the day, we are throwing a party together, and I want this party to be the best party.
That's awesome. I love that. We're throwing a party together, man.
Let's go. Party together every day.
That's what we're doing, man.
Jim, I see the wheels turning.
Excuse me. Yeah, Ricardo's got some just really good stuff there, right? About the vision. You got to live the vision, not just talk about it. And we've had lots of conversation in the last year for sure with different restaurant companies about what kind of promises they're making to their people, right? And it's not just, I promise that we're going to provide a happy and healthy work environment. You have to go further than that. You have to, here are exactly the ways that we are going to protect your employee experience, or here are the ways that we are going to provide your training, and here are the ways that we are going to specifically allow you to be successful and provide support and that kind of thing. Because the structure comment that Ricardo made that's an interesting one, right? You look at the most successful companies in any industry in the world, and they're the ones that have probably the most structure, right?
Yeah.
Think about structure, places like McDonald's and Chick-fil-A and some of these quick serve restaurants have. It's every single thing there's a structure for it, right? And there's a reason they're successful. Yeah, I agree with everything you said, Ricardo. That's really good stuff.
as a father and a hospitality operator, coach, consultant, I've discovered that folks want structure. They want to know where they're going. They want to know what the processes are, because it, for a lot of people, it just eases their anxiety. But if you're in there going willy-nilly and not having clearly laid out boundaries for everybody, that's a recipe for disaster. Then you're constantly trying to fix something that actually doesn't exist, which is the structure. Ricardo, what stuck out to me was, it sounded like it's really important to have a very clear hiring profile for each position. And they're not only the skill set, but probably the emotional intelligence, right? So that as you're going through in the hiring process, you can actually identify that. And the other thing that stuck with me is owning the narrative or creating a compelling narrative for prospective employees and potential guests as well. Our good friend Jensen Cummings loves to say, if you don't own the narrative, someone else will. And it's what we've discovered over having lots of conversations like this, is that most associates or potential associates want to know the narrative, and they want to know they're part of the narrative so that they can actually own that as well. So I want to thank you for making those points, and I want to just pitch it to a question that we've got from Sam. How to deal with the ego in the industry? Does someone's ego change how you approach their training? And I think that's an excellent question. Now, a little bit earlier, you were talking about owners or GMs or managers' ego, right? And you calling that out early in the process. Yeah. So how do you deal with the ego in the industry? Let's start with that question.
When it comes to the training aspect of it, you do not waver for somebody's ego, just the same way that you wouldn't waver for the owner's ego. That structure that you're going to give to them, that you're going to implement when it comes to the training, everyone should be held accountable to the same exact standards. Mm-hmm. So that way, once they've passed, that they know that they've done the same thing to be where they are. They've earned it together. They have done what they're supposed to do. That's what sets up your trainers. That's what sets up your training process. Because now everybody has, and this is a little phrase that I like to say, everybody has emotional equity. Let them build it in your place. Give them the right to turn someone away because they are somebody, like you said before, that doesn't fit there. You can't garden a whole place. You can't take care of a whole garden by yourself. None of us is as strong as all of us. And we need every single person in that place to make those wheels turn. It's like a watch. One little piece doesn't work, and it doesn't matter what kind of a watch it is. It's broken.
For sure. Let me flip it the other way. Maybe what Sam is asking about is, how do you deal with ego from a direct report or ownership as an associate?
That's something that's like a managing up type of skill. Where you have to be able to, if you can, if you've dealt with it enough, you can manage upwards for sure. When it comes to the ego of the place, it really depends on your relationship with that person, how you've structured yourself as well. The accountability, you can't forget that everybody is asked for starts in the mirror in the morning. And if you don't know that you're there for the right reason, that's when you start questioning yourself. And if you're there for the right reason, you can question everyone else. You just have to do it the right way, thoughtfully, with emotional intelligence, and knowing that they are still your higher up. So you still show respect, but you can definitely disagree because you care. You both can care and disagree and have different ideas. And that's just the way that you have to put it.
Well said. Jim?
The ego thing, it's a tough one to deal with, right? On any level. And sometimes I think it comes across as ego. Sometimes it comes across as pride or passion or
right.
Stress, pressure. This is my financial investment of a business and it's not going well and I'm stressed. That's one of the things that Adam, you and I have talked about this lots before, is that, for sure at Benchmark 60, one of our sort of core things is a mission statement or value. Ricardo, not to,
yep.
I know earlier you were saying, I don't listen to, but this is literally we live by it, is that consulting by opinion doesn't. And we say that because if I go into a place or Adam goes into a place, or Ricardo goes into a place, or anyone else who's trying to genuinely help a business improve, and that owner either has ego or stress or pressure or anxiety or whatever it might be that's going on for them, inflation, staffing shortages, all these different things coming at them, and I just say, hey, I know better than you do, you got to do this, it's never going to land.
Nope. No.
And I just want to make one last point, Jim. That was very well said. If an operator is putting out ads for staff, you got to understand who you're talking to in order to get their attention first and foremost, and then have them follow through by talking about your core values, your narrative, and that's got to be first and foremost. That has to be above the fold in the ad. Instead of chef must wear a clean jacket every day, you need to be talking about what makes your operation better than anyone else, and create a narrative that explains why this should be the place that you work instead of that place, right? And you can also do that on TikTok in a little video. You can do it wherever those potential employees are in order to get their attention. And this is an excellent time to be cleaning up structure and your narrative and your emotional equity, because there are people who are looking right now to get back in the industry, and they're not going to go just anywhere. They're going to go to a place that is absolutely aligned with their values, or very closely aligned with their values. And so it comes back to this other question. Yeah, you have a mission statement, but that's where you want to go. Let's talk about what we value right now in our operation. What are these core values that are immutable, that we're going to treat you with respect, that you'll always have someone to speak to if there's an issue, that autonomy, whatever you value as an organization, as a community, that should be the first thing you're talking about in your ads, your videos, whatever. And I guarantee you, if you pivot from that switch, or pivot to that particular way of doing it, you will have, if not instantaneous results, you'll certainly have more than enough folks to consider to fill your roster. But again, if you don't know what your values are, this is a great time to create them. Like, you can build the canoe while you're in the stream. And if you don't, you're going over the waterfall without any way to survive the other side.
Saying for that.
I was interested.
Now, this show is supposed to be 30 minutes, right? And we're going on 35 minutes. And it's funny because yesterday someone just told me, yeah, I'm listening to the show and it feels like the show could just keep going. The conversation won't stop. And so what we're doing right now is, after the stream is finished, we're going to go into another studio and we're going to record another 10, 15 minutes of bonus content. And that's really juicy because we've covered we've covered a lot. But in this bonus content, we are going to dial in, boom, some action steps that you can take right now in order to up-level your culture and become the preferred employer in your market. Ricardo, I want to say thank you very much for joining us. And we're going to continue this conversation in the other studio. And I think that there's still a lot to say, wouldn't you say?
Oh, I have plenty to say.
We're building out a new website. We're up-leveling our game because we realize that this show works. And we want to get the message out to even more people. So I am going to kindly request everybody who's watching, everybody who's listening, please go and like it, follow it on the Turn the Table podcast page, on Apple Podcasts, leave us a review, and on Spotify, you can actually give us stars. And we've got, I think, 70 or 75 5-star ratings on Spotify. So we really want this to be a value. So look for the Turning the Table podcast page recap, which will go out first thing tomorrow morning, that will have the links to the bonus content, and we'll summarize everything that we've talked in here so it's very clear. David is saying, thanks, guys. Thank you, Ricardo. Luis Gonzalez, great conversation. Great job, Jim and Ricardo. So somebody's got to try to manage the goat rodeo, man. What can I say? And hold it all loosely. So thank you very much for listening. We'll be back next week, same time, Thursday, 12 noon Eastern, on the Turn the Table podcast page, on Facebook, on the Chef Life Coach page, and on the Chef Adam Lamb YouTube. Leave us some questions, comments, feedback. We reply to every one of them. This show is for you, and we want you to get the value out of it. This is not a bunch of ego heads up here like going to talk about how great we are. We know that there's big problems in the industry, and we're here to chip away at that so that potential associates and potential guests know that this is a safe environment for them to be, that they can actually make this a great career over their lifetime, that this is an honorable position to take. It takes a certain emotional makeup to be in service to others. And to your point, Jim, if you ain't got that, well, there's lots of people, lots of other industries that need workers. No shame, no blame, but we don't have time to try to massage ego so that they feel heard and valued and pat them on the butt and tell them how special they are. And to Dave's point, firm, direct, and transparent communication clears up a lot of that ego. I'm not saying that it banishes it completely, but there's a way to have a healthy amount of ego versus an ego that's going to try to dominate the attention in your space, because that energy, to Ricardo's point, needs to be circular. It's a community, it's a team, and if one person's hogging all the limelight, then there are going to be other staff that are going to feel that maybe they should get a job somewhere else, and we don't want that. And one last point, train the staff you have right now. Train them, ask them where they want to be after this particular position. Do they want to be an executive chef? Do they want to be a bar manager? Do they want to be a GM? And start training them now for those positions, because then you create a pipeline of talent and a succession plan that really brings down the anxiety, because you got a plan and you. So we're going to sign off. Jim, Ricardo, see you next week.
Thanks, Adam.
See you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Turning the Table with me, Adam Lamb, and Jim Taylor. This episode was sponsored by Benchmark 60. We're on a mission to change the food and beverage industry by focusing on staff mental health and well-being, by forecasting and actively managing workload productivity. Over 200 restaurants and food and beverage operations have discovered for themselves how to increase staff retention and become a preferred employer in their market by using our proprietary system. If you'd like to have an operational culture that everybody wants to work for, then check out Benchmark 60 on the web at www.benchmark60.com. Thanks for taking the time to be with us and the courage to try new things for the restaurant profession's oldest problems. Turning the Table is a production of Realignment Media.